everyone. In this video, I am going to be reading Chapter 6, The Party, and Chapter 7, The Heroes. After Black Friday, there was one massacre after another. Many people were killed. The end of the Shah's reign was near. One day, he made a declaration on TV. I understand your revolt. Together, we will try to march towards democracy. After all that he has done, quiet. So the people are starting to push the Shah out, so he agrees to try and move towards democracy. For a few months, he actually did try. He tested 12 prime ministers. A Freemason? That's not suitable. You remind me too much of my father. Too thin, too short, one-eyed. The more he tried democracy, the more his statues were torn down. Pull a little to the left. Then his effigy was burned. So people were still revolting against him, even though he was trying democracy, but really he wasn't. Because a lot of the things that he is saying here about these people who wanted to be prime minister aren't valid reasons to not make them prime minister. The people only wanted one thing, his departure. So finally, we will never forget you. Out, out, out. The day he left the country had the biggest celebration of its entire history. So finally, the Shah is leaving the country and the people are celebrating here. Jimmy Carter, the President of the United States, refused to give refuge to the exiled Shah and his family. It looks like Carter has forgotten his friends. All that interests him is oil. It's Anwar al-Sadat who will accept him in his country. Who's he? He is the president of Egypt. And why is he taking the Shah? Well, they've been friends for a long time. They both betrayed the countries of our region by making a pact with Israel. In any case, as long as there is oil in the Middle East, we will never have peace. Let's talk about something else. Let's enjoy our new freedom, now that the devil has left. She says that, but it seems like there's some sort of monster that's surrounding them here that shows that maybe things aren't going to be great after all. Maybe Sadat welcomed the Shah because his first wife was Egyptian. Surely not. Politics and sentiment don't mix. After all this joy, a major misfortune took place. The schools closed during the period reopened and, children, tear out all the photos of the Shah from your books. But she was the one who told us that the Shah was chosen by God. Teacher, she says that the Shah was chosen by God. Satrapi, you shouldn't say things like that. Stand in the corner. So earlier, the teacher made sure that they all knew that the Shah was chosen by God, but now that he's not in power anymore, she forces them to tear this picture out of their books and says that the Shah was not chosen by God. These strange phenomena were everywhere. Hello, dear neighbors. Hello. All those demonstrations were really tiring, but we finally succeeded. Look, a bullet almost hit my wife's cheek. Liberty is priceless. And they say, oh, what nerve. She always had that nasty spot. If we weren't neighbors, he would have said she's a martyr raised from the dead. It's not important. So a lot of people who really weren't fighting for the Shah to leave are lying and say that they did everything they could. The battle was over for our parents, but not for us. My father says Raymond's father was in the Savak, and the Savak was the secret police of the Shah's regime. He killed 1 million people. 1 million? So one of their friends, Raymond, his father, killed a lot of people when he was in the secret police of the Shah. In the name of the dead million, we'll teach Raymond a good lesson. I have an idea. My idea was to put nails between our fingers like American brass knuckles and to attack Raymond. And here he is hiding behind a tree. Raymond, come out of hiding. Don't be a wimp. But my mother arrived in the middle of our euphoria. In the middle of our excitement, Mom showed up. So kids, what are you up to? Margie found some nails. We are going to beat up Raymond. His father has killed 1 million people. So that's what you want, to nail Raymond? Get in the car. I have a better solution. Really? What's that? Where did you find the nails? In Dad's toolbox. What would you say if I nailed your ears to the wall? Wow, it would hurt a lot. I'll let it go this time, but don't do it again. But Mom, Raymond's father killed, I know. His father did it, but it's not Raymond's fault. Anyway, it's not for you and me to do justice. I'd even say we have to learn to forgive. Your father is a murderer, but it's not your fault, so I forgive you, she says to Raymond. He is not a murderer. He killed communists, and communists are evil. So she tries to forgive Raymond, but then he says this. And she comes home and says, Mom, I spoke to Raymond. He says his father did the right thing in killing communists. My God, he repeats what they tell him. He will understand later. And then she stands in the mirror and says, You have to forgive. You have to forgive. I had the feeling of being someone really, really good. So now the Shah's out of power, and Margie and her family are working hard to move past what happened. And it's hard to forgive, and Margie is struggling with that. All right, Chapter 7, The Heroes. The political prisoners were liberated a few days later. There were 3,000 of them. We knew 2 of them. Siamak Jari, born February 20th, 1945, in Luristan. Profession, journalist. Crime, wrote subversive articles in the Kian. Date of imprisonment, July 1973. Released March 1979. Political conviction, communist. And then there's Mohsen Shakiba, born November 22nd, 1947, in Rakht. Profession, revolutionary. Crime, revolutionary. Date of imprisonment, April 1971. Released March 1979. Political conviction, communists. So both of these men were in prison. This one was for 6 years, and this one was for 8 years. For a long time, they were in prison. And their crimes, Siamak wrote articles against the Shah, and so he was arrested. And Mohsen probably was protesting and got arrested, so they were in prison for years and years because of that. I had heard about Siamak even before the revolution. He was the husband of my mother's best friend. How long since you had any news about him? 10 months? Bring Layli with you and come by today. We'll talk about it. Layli was Siamak's daughter. Where is your father? On a trip. Don't you know that when they keep saying someone is on a trip, it really means he's dead? She says to Layli. At least that was the case with my grandpa. And then Layli cries, boo-hoo. The truth is sometimes hard to accept. So Layli thought her dad was gone on a trip, but Margie says, no, I think your dad's actually dead. Margie says that Daddy is dead. No, of course he's not. And then Margie's mom says, go to your room and stay there. Nobody will accept the truth. After the revolution, I realized that you could be mistaken. Today is a great day, darling. We've invited Layli's father and Mohsen. They both just left prison. Layli's father, so he's not dead after all. What does he look like? You'll soon find out. Ding dong, Siamak. I'm so happy that you are back. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. I know. Oh, Taji, still a beauty. Still a flatterer. And this must be Margie. Lord, the last time I saw her, she was only 3 years old. Margie's obviously surprised that he's there and alive. Time is irretrievable. When they arrested me, Layli barely spoke, and now she's a real young lady. Well, yes. You want to play? No. Yes. Ding dong, that must be Mohsen. So Layli's angry at Margie because Margie said her dad was dead when he clearly was not. Mohsen, for God's sake, I thought you were dead. Me? Dead? What a joke. In prison, they called me the man with 7 lives. You know each other? In prison, we all knew each other. You remember the day they pulled out my nails? They have grown back since. Not in a normal way, but at least I have them. Our torturers received special training from the CIA. Real scientists, they knew each part of the body. They knew where to hit. Look, on your soles there are nerves that lead directly to the brain. They whipped me with thick electric cables so much that this looks like anything but a foot. Not to mention putting out their cigarettes on our backs and thighs. My parents were so shocked that they forgot to spare me this experience. Any news of Ahmadi? Ahmadi was assassinated. As a member of the guerrillas, he suffered hell. He always had cyanide on him in case he was arrested, but he was taken by surprise, and unfortunately, he never had a chance to use it. So he suffered the worst torture. And they're showing all of this torture that he went through, where people are yelling at him, "How do you like this? Confess, where are the others?" They even burned him with an iron. And then it shows an iron here, and Margie looking at it. I never imagined that you could use that appliance for torture. So these two men come in and they're explaining all of this torture that they went through. And Margie is clearly scared, but her parents are so surprised and shocked that they forgot to make Margie leave the room so she wouldn't have to listen to it. In the end, he was cut to pieces. He was in my class at the university. It's a good thing they didn't kill your father in prison. But you have to admit, I wasn't completely wrong when I said he was not on a trip. Maybe, but my father is a hero. Margie feels tiny when she hears Laylee say this. All torturers should be massacred. My father was not a hero. My mother wanted to kill people, so I went out to play in the street. Those stories had given me new ideas for games. The one who loses will be tortured. Yeah, what kind of torture? I have imagination too. The mustache on fire torture consists of pulling on the two sides of the upper lip, the twisted arm, the mouth filled with garbage. Back at home that evening, I had the diabolical feeling of power, but it didn't last. I was overwhelmed. Don't cry, darling. They will pay for what they have done. But I thought one should forgive. Bad people are dangerous, but forgiving them is too. Don't worry, there is justice on earth. I didn't even know what justice was. Now that the revolution was finally over once and for all, I abandoned the dialectic materialism of my comic strips. The only place I felt safe was in the arms of my friend, so Margie is confused about all of this and just trying to understand.